Some children remember their childhood. Liam remembered only the rain, and the room where adults were afraid to look into the corners. He did not remember her face, only the hand that never let go. The old man spoke quietly, not like someone casting a curse, but like someone recording a price. He said, "If he sees it again, he will not be held back." The woman answered, "Then make it so. He does not see." Later, Liam would learn that ordinary curses were crude. They rotted, they breathed, they crawled. But what lay on the paper before the old man was different. Not filth, not decay, a lock. Everything in that room was quieter, too quiet. Not people, not beasts, not curses, only witnesses. The old man placed the coin on the seal and said, "The price will remain." The woman answered, "I know." Liam remembered the smell, rain, iron, and dried apples. The final mark fell onto the paper, and the light went out. A door closed inside him. When he woke up, the woman was no longer beside him. Only a trace remained. Since then, he never saw what he was not meant to see. But the trace remained with him. And one day, that trace would lead him back. The curse market opened before sunrise, not because people were brave, because curses did not wait for daylight. It was not a fair, not a black market. It was a street where misfortune had a price. Liam worked as a porter. He carried what others refused to touch. Here, curses were bought, sold, contained, and sometimes renamed. A good vessel kept a curse quiet. A bad one made it angry. Everything dangerous needed paperwork, and a lid strong enough to survive the night. The brokers did not sell mercy. They sold terms, and terms were always cleaner than the people who agreed to them. A curse without a record was everyone's problem. A curse with a record became someone's debt. Level 0 curses were supposed to be harmless. A cold room, a broken cup, a week of bad sleep, small things, cheap things. For some, a curse was merchandise. For others, it was the last thing left to sell. Transfers were never safe, only managed. And if a transfer failed, the curse did not return unchanged. Liam knew the market from the bottom, not the prices, the weight, the roots, the things no one wanted to carry twice. Then Liam noticed something too cheap, a level 0 nuisance, barely worth recording, barely worth fearing. The tag called it Unpleasant Coincidences, Level 0. Liam had carried curses for years. He knew how danger smelled, but some locks are sold as accidents, and some crowns begin as coins. After that night, the market gave Liam no answer. It gave him a token. At 10, Liam received his first porter's token, not as a gift, as permission to work. The market did not pity children. It tested them like ropes. Would they hold or would they snap? They led him to the place where even horror was labeled and arranged on shelves. Some warnings were simple. Others sounded as if the thing inside already knew how to wait for a mistake. One small vessel was marked with only 2 words: "Do not comfort." The market's first rule was simple: do not pity what you are not paid to pity. Second, do not listen to what wants to be heard. Third, if the tag says "do not open," then do not open. At first, Liam was trusted only with level 0 lots: insomnia, fear of the dark, envy, forgotten promises. But level 0 did not mean safe. It only meant the market considered the risk cheap. Those who made mistakes were not always thrown out. Sometimes they were simply moved to where very little was still expected of a person. After that, Liam carried boxes as if every one of them were alive. If a box warmed near the lock, the seal inside was arguing with its contents. If the shadow lagged half a step behind, the box was better left alone. If a thing wanted to be lifted wrong, it had already chosen a place for someone else's mistake. That was how the market raised its children. Not with care, not with teaching, with weight, silence, and the habit of surviving. Liam was not loved, but he was kept. He sensed the weak things well. The strong ones did not drive him mad. By 22, the market had made him almost the perfect porter of curses. Not a free man, just someone who had stayed alive long enough. The curse market opened before dawn. While the city still slept, market hands cut the night seals one by one. Then the blue lanterns woke. Ordinary fire was too easily offended here. Above the main arch, the sign was older than most houses around it. Liam came before his shift, not from devotion, from habit. Under his collar, the old mark stayed quiet. That was usually a good sign. Under the storage awning, new porters waited with fresh tokens and clean hands. The senior porter taught them the first truth again: vessels do not respect strength. Liam took the first list of the day. The last warning was never decorative. Then the senior porter gave him a novice, Tom. Strong shoulders, wrong hands. Warehouse 3 smelled of dust, wax, iron, salt, and something sour between the boards. New workers watched the frightening things. Liam watched the quiet ones. Tom reached for the side loops. Liam stopped him before the box could learn his mistake. From below, Liam told him, "If it becomes lighter, put it down." Tom looked at the seal. The seal noticed. By the time they reached Carrier's Run, the market had begun to fill with need. The Southern Pavilion handled cheap things: short fears, family quarrels, sleepless nights. Cheap did not mean harmless. People still asked if a curse could simply be removed. The answer was always the same: it had to live somewhere. Then Lawrence from the 3rd Pavilion changed the route. The authorization carried Cyrus Vane's name. The temporary vessel stood empty. Empty things were not supposed to wait like that. The temporary vessel stood empty, but frost was already crawling across the metal. Then the main arch went quiet. No one announced House Avellin. No one needed to. The silver bird on the carriage door was small. Old houses did not shout their names. They expected the world to remember. Lady Avellin stepped down in white. In the curse market, white did not stay clean, but her cloak did. Behind her, servants carried a covered stretcher. No face, no hand, only someone important enough to be hidden. Then came the records: a diagnostic report, an iron debt bracelet, a frayed cord, and the absence of a cheap protective talisman. Liam saw the empty cord. For one moment, he understood too much. Cyrus Vane was already waiting. He had not arrived. He had been there. Lady Avellin asked if everything was ready. Cyrus did not say yes. He said enough. The circle was prepared. The vessel waited, and another life could be written in. The book received the names: Arian Avellin, Neil, debt-bound, house claim. The lie looked neat. The lie looked legal. The lie had a seal. Then the assignment tag was selected. Replacement carrier, Neil. Transfer may begin. Sometimes the most terrible thing in the market was not a curse. Sometimes it was permission. The seals on the floor began to wake. There was no fire, no chanting, no beautiful miracle. In the curse market, the important things happened quietly. First, the outer lines of the transfer circle appeared in dull gray. Then the inner lines followed, thin and precise, like veins under old stone. Above them, the metal frame answered with a low, mechanical hum. The procedure had accepted the terms. Liam stood beside the temporary vessel with his hands behind his back. That was how porters were trained. Once a transfer began, their hands had to be visible or removed from use. No sudden movements, no helping, no pity. The market did not forbid compassion. It only made compassion useless. At the center of the circle, Arian Avellin lay hidden beneath a pale, noble blanket. Beside him, Lady Avellin held the edge of the fabric in one white-gloved hand. Her face stayed controlled, almost cold, but her fingers were too tense. She was afraid for her son. And for him, she had already agreed to what would happen to someone else. The second mark on the floor waited for Neil. Not for healing, for assignment. His name was already in the book. His debt record had already given House Avellin the right to use him. The adults called it transfer, temporary containment, replacement carrier. But the meaning was simpler. The curse would be pulled from the noble child and placed into the debt-bound boy who had no power to refuse. Cyrus Vane opened the procedure calmly, like an occult notary. Lawrence pressed the first seal. Primary carrier confirmed, related source confirmed, transfer basis confirmed. Every word sounded dry, legal, almost respectable. That made it worse. The temporary vessel at Liam's feet began to pull heat from the stone. Frost cracked across the dark metal. Then thin gray threads rose from beneath Arian's blanket. Not smoke, not blood. Something cleaner, stranger, like roots being dragged out of living soil. The curse did not want to leave. It had already found a place inside Orion. It had touched his breath, his fear, his name, his inheritance. But the circle was stronger. The gray threads bent toward the vessel, and the narrow sealed neck accepted them without ever opening. Liam watched the vessel. That was his job. Not the mother, not the hidden child on the stretcher, not Neil. Only the vessel. If it cracked, he had to call a broker. If it leaked, he had to throw salt. If it became lighter, he had to step back and not turn around. The instructions rarely explained why. Then the sound stopped. The curse had left Arian, but it had not entered Neil. For one dangerous moment it existed between carriers, between bodies, between documents, between decision and price. The temporary vessel turned dull, like old pewter. The frost was gone. Too quickly. Lawrence took the second assignment tag. The tag said the transfer was authorized. Replacement carrier, Neil. Basis, debt record. After that seal, the circle would recognize Neil as the new home for someone else's curse. Everything would be properly recorded. Everything would be legal. And inside Liam, everything became quiet. Not calm, quiet. Like the room from his oldest memory, like a candle that did not tremble. Like a signature placed before anyone asked who would pay. Liam looked at Cyrus. Cyrus was not looking at him. And that was when Liam understood. Now. Not openly, not bravely, not like a hero. Only one small movement, while everyone watched the noble child and no one watched the porter's hands. Liam stepped toward the vessel. He said the frost had vanished too fast. It was true. Not the whole truth, but enough. Cyrus turned his head toward the vessel, and when Cyrus looked, everyone else looked with him. Liam bent down as if checking the lower seal. His black glove passed near the assignment tags on the registration table. The paper shifted. Only slightly. One line lower. And beneath the authorization, another instruction appeared. Re-evaluation required before carrier assignment. Liam removed his hand. Almost no one saw. Almost. Cyrus raised his eyes and looked directly at him. He had seen everything, and he did not stop him. Lawrence pressed the seal. The circle flashed gray, then yellow. Then every line on the floor went dark at once. The metal frame above the circle cracked with a dry warning sound. Transfer blocked. Re-evaluation required. Silence fell over the main circle. Lawrence went pale. Lady Avellin rose from her place. Tom froze behind Liam, finally understanding that people were not only destroyed by knives in the market. Sometimes a correct piece of paper was enough. Neil was still standing on the second mark. Not free, not saved, only not yet assigned. Sometimes the distance between a sentence and a life was one hidden line. Lady Avellin demanded to know what the block meant. Cyrus answered softly. A technical delay. But the temporary vessel had already darkened. Something inside it knocked against the metal wall. Once, then again. The curse was waiting for a new home. And now the market had a problem. Liam had not defeated the system. He had only made it stumble over one of its own rules. But for Neil, even that meant time. And in the curse market, time was rarely a gift. More often, it was simply another debt. By evening, the transfer circle had already been washed. Not clean, only acceptable. The market was good at removing traces. It was worse at removing guilt. The temporary vessel was taken to the closed row for re-evaluation. It no longer knocked. It no longer trembled. That was worse. Lady Avellin left through a private door. Not defeated, not ashamed, only delayed. Her son was still alive. And for House Avellin, that was almost the same as justice. Neil was not released. His name stayed in the book. His debt stayed with House Avellin. The transfer was blocked, but the claim remained. On the market, a delay was not mercy. Tom did not look proud anymore. That morning, he had wanted to prove himself. By evening, he had learned the first real lesson of the market. A person could be destroyed without a blade. All it took was the right document. At the end of the shift, Liam signed the worksheet. The market liked signatures. They made damage easier to store. A body could shake. A witness could lie. But ink stayed obedient. The senior porter did not ask what Liam had done. He only looked at him once and said, "Cyrus Vane called for you." No one on the market needed to explain why that was bad. The inner corridors were always dry. Outside, rain ran through the market stones. Inside, the wood stayed polished, the lamps stayed steady, and the silence had rules. Even the weather knew where it was not allowed. Every door had a name. Re-evaluation, carrier records, compensation claims, licensed transfers. Every name had a function. Every function had a price. Cyrus Vane's office was small, not poor, small. He did not need a grand room to remind people where they stood. The desk did that well enough. The transfer had been delayed. House Avellin was displeased. The market was displeased. Cyrus said it calmly, as if describing rain. Liam listened. Punishment sounded cleaner when spoken by someone polite. Liam did not ask what would happen to him. He asked only one question. What happened to Neil? For a moment, Cyrus almost looked amused. Almost. Neil was alive. The appointment had been delayed until re-evaluation. Not cancelled, not forgiven, only postponed. Cyrus called it a technical interval. Liam called it a night. Then Liam noticed the box. Small, black, plain. It looked too cheap to be dangerous. On the market, that usually meant someone had lied about the danger. Lot 0113. Unpleasant coincidences. Level 0. Domestic risk. Price. 3 copper coins. It was the kind of curse the market sold to people who could not afford a real disaster. Liam read the label twice, not because it frightened him, because the box was too quiet. Most cursed things wanted attention. This one waited like it already knew his name. Cyrus pushed the box toward him. The box would remain the anchor. The curse would be assigned to a registered bearer. In this case, Liam Rowe. A punishment, a compensation, a transaction. The market preferred words that made traps sound fair. Liam placed 3 copper coins on the desk. The price was ridiculous. That was the cruelty of it. Enough to make the deal his. Not enough to make it a choice. Cyrus wrote Liam's name into the book. Bearer, Liam Rowe. Anchor, box retained. Price paid, 3 copper coins. The ink made it official. The seal made it worse. Liam took the box. Something inside it clicked. Not like a lock, more like a smile made of wood. He had bought a curse. But something had chosen him first. Liam did not leave Cyrus Vane's office immediately. He stopped beneath the first corridor lamp and looked at the box. Dark wood, iron corners, a red market seal, a paper tag tied with thin cord. Lot 0113. Unpleasant coincidences, level 0. Domestic risk. Price paid, 3 copper coins. Nothing about it looked important. That was the problem. Most cursed things wanted attention. They whispered, scratched, cried, pretended to be someone you loved. This box did nothing. It simply waited. Liam shifted it under his arm. For one step it felt too light. For the next, too heavy. Then ordinary again. He looked down at it and said nothing. On the market, silence was rarely empty. At the service exit, night workers were setting the blue seals on the back gate. The day was ending, but the market did not sleep. It only changed which doors were allowed to open. Near the exit, old notices covered the wall. No returns. Register before transfer. Unclaimed lots held overnight. The kind of rules that made suffering look organized. Beside them hung an old regional map. The city was drawn clearly. The market, the lower streets, the northern road, the line of the perimeter. But beyond that line, the ink faded into white. Not empty land, not unknown land. Something worse. A place the map refused to remember. A drunk broker stood before it, touching the pale space with one finger. He said there had been a road there once. Maybe a tower. Maybe a bridge. Then he laughed, because the map had forgotten. And when a map forgot something, people learned to forget it too. Liam looked at the white space longer than he should have. For one moment, a road almost appeared, a thin, dark line through the blankness. Then pain moved under his collarbone, sharp and quiet. The old seal warned him before his mind could. He turned away. The box under his coat grew warm, not hot, almost comfortable. That made him want to throw it into the nearest gutter. He did not. A curse without an anchor did not become freedom. It became a search. And things that searched for a new home usually found someone weaker. Outside the back gate, Tom was waiting in the rain. His new porter token hung against his chest. T-027. That morning, he had looked proud of it. Now he held it like a warning. He looked at the shape beneath Liam's coat and tried not to stare. Liam told him the box was not his. Formally, he was the bearer. The box was the anchor. That was not ownership. That was paperwork with teeth. Tom asked if Neil was safe. Liam wanted to lie. He did not. Neil was alive. The transfer had been delayed, but House Avellin still had the debt record. The curse still needed a home, and the market still knew how to finish what it had started. Sometimes, not yet, was the only mercy poor people could afford. The gate closed behind them. Blue light ran along the iron bands, and the market sealed itself for the night. Then the tag on the box changed. Not loudly, not dramatically. A second line appeared beneath the official writing. Bearer awaits final registration. Liam held the box very still. Final registration. Cyrus had written his name in the book. The market had taken his coins. The seal had been placed. And still, The box was waiting for something else. The line vanished. Only the old label remained. Unpleasant coincidences, level 0. Domestic risk, a lie with a price attached. Liam left the market and reached the fork in the road. The central street was longer, brighter, and easier to watch. The lower quarter was darker, narrower, and worse. He chose worse. Rain thickened between the crooked houses. Windows closed as he passed. Weak blue lanterns flickered above wet stone. The city smelled of cheap wax, sour bread, old water, and people pretending not to notice danger. The box stayed quiet. Too quiet. At the dry fountain, Liam slowed. He did not know yet that someone was waiting, but the place already looked prepared. The wall lantern flickered. The old bakery sign hung on a rusted chain. Water gathered where it should have drained away. Inside the cracked fountain basin lay wet leaves, trash, and 3 copper coins. Liam looked at them. 3 copper coins. The price of a curse, the price of a trap, the price of a mistake the market had called a transaction. Then he saw the first man. Not directly. In the dark reflection of a rain-wet window, broad shoulders, thick neck, one hand near a heavy knife. The second man waited near the left alley, tall, thin, a chain wrapped around his hand. The third stepped out last, clean cloak, good boots, a calm smile, not a fighter, a watcher. Liam stopped beside the dead fountain. The box beneath his coat became completely still, not lighter, not heavier, only waiting. And then the man in the clean cloak said his name. Liam Rowe. The man in the clean cloak wanted the box. Not Liam, the box. Liam placed it on the edge of the dead fountain carefully, as if it were more dangerous than the 3 men around him. The first attacker came with a knife. Liam moved too late to look graceful, but early enough to keep the blade out of his ribs. Steel tore his coat. The chain came next, wrapping around his arm and pulling him off balance. For a moment, it was simple. 3 men. 1 porter, wet stone, bad odds. Then the clean-cloaked man touched the box. It clicked. Nothing exploded. No light filled the alley. No voice spoke. Only the world began to make mistakes. A bird burst from the roof and struck the old bakery sign. The rusted chain snapped. The sign fell. The knife man staggered into the chain man. The chain slipped beneath polished boots. A hand reached for dignity and found wet stone instead. The box fell. Liam caught it almost in time. Then a knife opened a sack of flour. White dust filled the rain. Someone shouted fire. A bucket of water crashed from above and killed the lantern. In the dark, a furious cat chose the cleanest cloak in the alley. The last attacker tried to stand, stepped on 3 copper coins and fell hard against the fountain. Then it was over. Not one survived. Liam stood in the rain, holding the box. Lot 0113. Unpleasant coincidences, level 0. And on the wood, a new line appeared. Price, unknown. Liam reached his room, above the old scribe shop after midnight. He locked the door behind him before he let himself breathe. Only then did the pain arrive. His coat was torn. His arm burned where the chain had caught him. Rain and flour clung to his hair, his gloves, his face. He placed the box on the table. It should have been scratched. One corner had struck stone during the fight, but the wood was smooth. The iron was clean. The paper tag was dry. The box had kept no evidence. Liam washed the cut at his side, tested his bruised hand, and sat across from the thing he had bought for 3 copper coins. Lot 0113. Unpleasant coincidences. Level 0. Domestic risk. A falling sign. A broken chain. A dead lantern. 3 men on the ground. Small things. Too many small things. He took the lot tag and wrote on the back. Price unknown. True name blocked. Cyrus knew. Box is anchor. I am bearer. Why did it intervene? He almost wrote helped. Then he crossed the word out. Curses did not help. They only acted when the result suited their nature. Rain moved down the window in long lines. The room became too quiet. Not silent, quiet, like an old memory opening one eye. Liam stood before the cracked mirror and pulled his collar aside. Under his collarbone, the old mark was glowing. Not a wound, not a tattoo, a fragment of a seal, a small circle, a point, part of a star. 2 thin lines. For one heartbeat, gold moved under his skin. Then, in the mirror behind him, he saw her. Not a face, never a face, only wet, dark hair. A dark sleeve, a tense hand. The smell came with it. Iron, wet cloth, dried apples. A voice from somewhere deeper than memory said, "Look at me." Liam turned. The room was empty. The box sat on the table, waiting. He wrote one more line on the tag. Do not open, even if it asks. Then he locked the box in the lower drawer with old papers, cloth, a spare knife, and 3 copper coins. He put the key under his shirt, close to the old mark. That felt like a mistake. So did every other option. Later, Liam slept sitting against the wall, one hand near the knife. The candle burned low, the rain softened, and inside the locked drawer the box changed. A line appeared on the dark wood. Registration complete. Then another. Bearer accepted. Then a third. Price awaits clarification. For one heartbeat, the old seal under Liam's collarbone answered with a thin gold light. Liam did not wake, but the box did. The market was closed, but it was not asleep. Below Cyrus Vane's office, the transfer court stood dark again. The circle had been washed. The vessel had been carried away. The papers had been sealed. To anyone outside, the matter was over. To Cyrus, it had only begun. On his desk lay 2 documents. One was new, Lot 0-113. Bearer, Liam Rowe. The other was old, a damaged schematic of the seal of the closed gate. 3 circles, a locked star, 8 outer nodes, a precise design made to close a door inside a person. Cyrus did not touch either page. He already knew what connected them. The knock came once. Official, quiet, final. The Inquisitor entered without waiting to be welcomed. He wore ash gray, not black. His face was narrow and controlled. On his glove was a thin mark shaped like an eye and a locked door. "You issued an unstable lot," he said, "without notification." Cyrus turned from the window. "I issued a compensation lot. The record remains accurate." The Inquisitor placed a report on the desk. Lower quarter incident. 3 hired men. Attack failed. Lot 0-113 manifestation suspected. A falling sign. A broken chain. A spilled flower. A dead lantern. 3 copper coins. Alone, each detail was nothing. Together, they were too precise to be accidental. The lot had answered immediately. That was the first problem. The second problem was Liam. The bearer reacted, the Inquisitor said. The old closure is no longer stable. Cyrus said nothing. The silence was answer enough. The seal of the closed gate had once done its work well. It had sealed Liam's sight and left him with fragments only. Instinct, danger sense, small wrongness in vessels and shadows. Enough to survive. Not enough to understand. But now something was pressing against the lock from the other side. The Inquisitor looked down at the registration paper. There is no true name. The hidden line was faint but clear. True name. Blocked. Not erased. Not missing. Blocked. A level 0 curse was not supposed to carry a silence like that. Old lots often have damaged records, Cyrus said. Prices become damaged, the Inquisitor answered. Former bearers are lost. Warnings are misfiled, but true names do not block themselves. The room became very still. Outside, rain moved over the glass. If the seal continues to fail, the Inquisitor said, the bearer may begin to see what the market is not licensed to show. There it was. The sentence neither of them wanted first. Because if Liam's sight returned, it would not be a broker's sight. Not classifications, not approved risk, not transfer law, something deeper. A way of seeing through the document and into the price beneath it. The Inquisitor's gaze shifted to the window. Perimeter anomalies have already been logged twice this season. I will not have a bearer with broken closure adding a third. So it was not only the lot, not only Liam. The perimeter had entered the conversation. The border around the city, the reading lock, the blessing everyone praised because no one was allowed to read the cage beneath it. If he destabilizes, the Inquisitor said, he will be isolated. Not arrested, not questioned, isolated. A cleaner word, a crueler one. Cyrus looked at the papers again. Lot 0-113. Immediate manifestation, unknown price. True name blocked, old seal reacting. He should have looked worried. Instead, he looked interested. That was what made him dangerous. He was not deciding whether Liam deserved protection. He was deciding whether Liam remained useful. The bearer has not lost control, Cyrus said. Not yet. And the lot? Cyrus almost smiled. The lot may be more disciplined than its classification suggests. Discipline is not innocence. No, Cyrus said, but it is interesting. The word stayed between them. Interesting. Not safe, not legal, not acceptable. Interesting. Cyrus pulled a blank sheet toward him and began to write. Lot 0-113. Observation. First manifestation. Immediate. Effect. Probability chain. Price. Undeclared. Old seal reaction. Suspected. Then he added one final line. Bearer was not chosen tonight. The Inquisitor's eyes sharpened, because that changed everything. If Liam had not simply received the lot, then the assignment was not an accident. It was recognition, or return, or the reopening of something that should have stayed closed. The Inquisitor stood. This remains under watch. If the seal shifts again, I will know before the market does. Then he left. Cyrus remained at the desk. Below, the market looked empty. It was not. In the far corner of the closed transfer court, one shadow stood too still, too thin, too tall, too much like a witness. Cyrus saw it only in the window reflection. When he looked directly, the corner was empty. He opened the lower drawer and returned the old seal schematic to darkness. Before the drawer closed, the geometric lines answered with faint, muted gold. Not bright, not alive, only listening. Something sealed long ago had heard the first knock, and somewhere below, in a cheap rented room with a locked box, Liam Rowe was no longer the only one being watched. Liam woke to gray morning, not rested, only awake. His back was against the wall. His hand was near the knife. His ribs hurt, his arm burned where the chain had caught him, and the room smelled of dirty water, old wood, and rain drying in cloth. For one breath, he did not remember the box. Then he did. The key hung under his shirt, close to the old mark beneath his collarbone. The mark was quiet now. No gold, no pain, no warning. That should have helped. It did not. Liam opened the lower drawer. Inside lay old delivery slips, clean cloth, a spare knife, 3 copper coins, and the small black box. It looked ordinary. Dark wood, iron corners, red market seal, paper tag, no scratches, no cracks, no proof that it had struck stone, survived an ambush, or written words on its own skin. The box had kept no evidence. Liam placed it on the table and turned the official tag toward the morning light. Lot 0113. Unpleasant coincidences. Level 0. Domestic risk. Price, 3 copper coins. Bearer, Liam Rowe. The label still said Level 0. Liam looked at it for a long time. A falling sign, a broken chain, a dead lantern, spilled flour, 3 men on wet stone, small things, too many small things. He turned the tag over and read his own notes from the night before. Price unknown, true name blocked. Cyrus knew. Box is anchor. I am bearer. Do not open. The last line no longer felt excessive. Liam considered leaving the box in the drawer. Then he considered carrying it. Both choices were bad. Leaving the anchor behind meant someone could steal it, damage it, or open it before he returned. Carrying it meant taking the problem into the market. The box offered no opinion, which was in itself very much like a curse. He wrapped it in clean cloth, placed it inside his old leather shoulder bag, and tied the strap twice. Then he closed his collar high enough to hide the old seal. In the cracked mirror, his reflection looked almost normal. A porter with a torn coat, tired eyes, and a bag. Only the bag was wrong.